Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of your Copy Chats with me, Wei Lin. In a move that should surprise absolutely nobody, authorities in Singapore are now using contact tracing data for criminal investigations. This is despite a promise that contact tracing data would be used just for COVID tracking. So in the parliament, government minister told members of parliament that the police will be able to use the data collected. This was explained by Minister of State for Home Affairs, Desmond Tan. And I think they mentioned, yes, on Tuesday, Singapore's foreign minister and head of its National Technology Initiative, Dr. Vivian Balakrishnan, told parliament that he had not thought to mention law enforcement access to the program's data under Singapore's Criminal Procedure Code when he touted Trace Together's privacy features last year. Trace Together being the official government contact tracing app that a lot of people use in Singapore right now. Frankly, I had not thought of the CPC when I spoke earlier, Dr. Balakrishnan said, adding that other sensitive data such as phone and banking records are also subject to criminal investigations. I think Singaporeans can understand why the CPC confers such broad powers. There may be serious crimes, murder, terrorist incidents, where the use of trace together data in police investigations may be necessary in the public interest. Governments worldwide are grappling with effective contact tracing. Of course, absolutely. So this is reported by the LA Times. I wanted to use the LA Times as a source because I reckon that it would be more objective, compared to a local news source. Anyway, it's more I reckon it's more interesting. And of course, there will be some people who would rightly point out that, hey, this is not what was promised. So, an opposition politician, the Progress Singapore Party, Mr. Harish Pillai. Mr. Pillai, I think he's a software engineer, so he fully understands what all this is about. It says here, he's skilled in Python, C, security, enterprise architecture, and virtualization. He has a master's in electrical and computer engineering from Oregon State University. So he has ample, familiarity with technology, and he knows how these things operate. And he says, despite Vivian's assurances, which is Dr. Balakrishnan, the foreign minister, I feel I was let down. He added, the trust that was asked for in using the Trace Together app was broken. Yes, an acknowledgement of the mistake was done, so thank you, but we can and should be able to do better. So, it is very clear, that I think a lot of people feel that false promises were made, promises were not kept with regards to privacy. But also, this should come as no surprise whatsoever in Singapore, because we live in a place where the rule of law, every possible avenue is used to enforce the rule of law. And that's always been the case. Yeah. So this is no exception. I mean, personally, I may not like it either, but, you accept it. It is what it is. Now, to put this in the proper context, I went and found other places which are dealing with similar controversy. So look at this, reported in Reuters. German restaurants object after police use COVID data for crime fighting. Same story. So in Germany, it turns out when you check into a bar and restaurant, you have to give the restaurant your name, telephone number, and address. So I think that's the system they use rather than a national contact tracing app. So this information is being used for crime fighting as well, which again is causing some controversy. Now, I think it is pretty common knowledge that Germany, more than most places, is very particular about privacy, and this is coming from a history. Post World War II, East Germany was a police state where everything and everyone was under surveillance. You could report on your neighbor, on your family, to the secret police, and they would be disappeared. And so it is against this backdrop, this historical, background that people are very sensitive about any kind of information sharing. They don't want the government to know anything more than is absolutely necessary about them. And so, yeah, this is causing a lot of discomfort. Mr. Dirk Appel says, I work at a bank. Over there, private data is a huge issue. Every little thing like a birthday is watched so that no one else can find it out, unless on a need to know basis. And he thinks that this is an abuse of confidence. Thomas Langfelder, managing director of the Hotel and Catering Association. That's really interesting because they are the ones who, of course, this organization represents all the restaurateurs who have to comply with the government rules. He said, reports of data being used elsewhere would not encourage patrons to obey the rules. We can't let someone play fast and loose with that data. Officials should be well aware of what they're allowed to use and what's not allowed. So I think this is only going to become a bigger issue all around the world over. Here we go. Even in Canada, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, he announced a contact tracing app. Legal precedents, blah blah blah. It is here many people would refuse to voluntarily enroll in contact tracing apps like Alberta's Trace Together if they believe their information was not safe. So in Canada, there is a recognition that you have to balance people's willingness to cooperate and their skepticism and desire for privacy. And that's not the only place. Over here, the Australian government refuses police requests for access to Australian coronavirus contact tracing app. Remarkable, because it seems like this is the only only incidents I found where the police have not been able to get what they want from the government. The Morrison government in Australia has knocked back requests from law enforcement agencies for added capabilities in the COVID-19 contact tracing app. On Thursday, Scott Morrison, the Prime Minister, appealed to Australians to download the contact tracing app as a way to support health services. He told reporters that the app was a public health tool to assist when someone has contracted the virus, to assist them in that work to contact others who may have been put at risk. The Attorney General was very clear this morning when he said the police, for example, have no access to the data. And I think, very clearly, Australia would see a high level of app usage because everybody can see, that this is nothing controversial. When people observe that, my data is safe, the police are not able to access the data even for legitimate, perfectly good reasons, they're more likely to use the app because they feel more secure, safe, regardless of whether or not they have done anything wrong whatsoever. It's just the fact that they don't like their personal data to be available to anybody. So this has nothing to do with whether or not people have done things wrong things or broken the law. Merely the mere fact that your data is protected and kept as private as possible is an encouragement for people. They're more willing to use the app. So now you've seen a few different countries facing a few different situations with regards to the contact tracing apps that they have, respectively. Even in Germany, it's not the app per se, it's the mere fact of the names, telephone numbers, and addresses being collected, being shared with the law enforcement agencies. And I think originally the reason why I looked into this was because, I live in Singapore and this is a big deal right now in Singapore. In Singapore, there are many things that there's a lot of data sharing. So I'll give you an example. There's a body called the Health Promotion Board, and they have programs. They have a program where if you exercise regularly and your progress is tracked, activities actually tracked on a fitness tracker, then they will award you points which go towards redemption of, say, vouchers for the supermarket or something like that. Some rewards like that. And all this is done to encourage people to live a healthy lifestyle. So people have in the past shared data, personal data about their movements or their activities for the purpose of getting a little benefit, living a healthy lifestyle, and it's shared with government agencies. So it's not as if that this is something totally unheard of, right? So it's something that's already been done in the past. I think the mere fact that people heard, that this data would be used for contact tracing, and then later on they found that, oh, there's this exception for criminal investigations. Well, I think it's that sense of a broken promise, that really got under people's skin. Not the fact that data is being shared, because data has always been shared. Even for insurance companies. So even in Singapore, there are insurance companies where you can buy, insurance policies, and if you log your, exercise with the app, it will give you small benefits. It doesn't actually change your premiums. I don't think it's that sophisticated, but you get little perks, right? I think you also get some kind of voucher somewhere sometimes, provided you do some, exercise. So I think that this is very clearly the way that the world is changing. I mean, Singapore is one of the first in the world to take this step in this direction. But I think it'll be by no means will it be the last. I think we can expect to see this kind of direction from a lot of countries moving forward. Who knows, by next year, contact tracing data being used by law enforcement may be the norm worldwide rather than the exception, right? Especially if the app is from a government agency. Now, I know that there are contact tracing apps, I think, from Google and Apple, and those, of course, because they're private companies, and they have no obligation, to share it with national government, so they may not. But any apps created by local authorities in whatever country, most likely, there will be some push, there will be some movement towards using it for other purposes. This data is extremely valuable, because there's so much of it, and it's so reliable, because people will undoubtedly, they will check in and check out of places, and you will be able to find out who went close to who, because that is important for keeping track of the spread of COVID-19. So undoubtedly, this valuable data will be so attractive for any authorities to find a way to use. And we don't even have to talk about the purpose. You can use them for perfectly good purposes, like solving serious crimes. And that, of course, would be a huge, huge help. Yeah, so this is just the way the world is going, my friends. I think there's no way about it. And we will just have to get used to this new world. Now, since you've come to follow me right to the end of this video, I'll add on a little bit extra, which I think is worth saying, because I would like to end the video on a positive note. And that is, I think it's inevitable, broadly speaking, that there will be more and more transparency in the world, because people have shown, with social media, that all of us are willing to give up some amount of our personal data for fancy new features, for convenience, for, cheaper insurance premiums, all kind of very good reasons for us to give up a measure of privacy. But what I don't think enough people have spoken about is the opposite end, which is to ask for transparency from the agencies and organizations collecting our data. Because an agency, an organization that has access to, everybody's data has an unusual responsibility to be extremely robust and secure. So I think there should be, or I think it would help if there was a counterforce to say, well, we also want, the agencies, the bodies processing, holding, collecting the data to be unusually transparent with how they are protecting the data. I mean, you don't have to tell me the algorithm, but maybe you need to tell me how it's being used, You need to tell me who has requested the data. Maybe I ought to be able to find out even a log, if there's a publicly accessible log to find out how the data is being used. I think that will go a long way towards building up people's confidence in the institutions and organizations that we put in place to manage all this data. I think management of the public's data is an extremely important thing that cannot be outsourced, and that every society, every country has to find their own solution for. And I think the thing that would give people the most confidence, give people the most peace of mind, would be full transparency, or as much as possible, to see how that data is being used, by whom, and when, anytime that they choose. And I think that just is obvious once you hear it, but I have yet to hear anybody else say. And that is the thought that I want to leave you with. Thank you very much for listening. And once again, if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button and subscribe. I'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.